Hi everyone, in this quick lecture we're going to talk about how you can design a new diet for your life. So when designing a new diet, we have some general recommendations. These would be what we would consider to be good diets, ones that don't have shortcomings, aren't considered fad diets. You could follow the MyPlate system from myplate.gov. You can follow the Mediterranean diet. If you're already on one of these diets but have certain shortcomings that you've seen, so for example, you're not getting enough calcium, so then you could add milk or sardines to your diet if you're following one of the above systems. And another thing you could try, obviously, is following a vegetarian or vegan diet. If you want to try one of those for a day, you could always go for it, and we'll talk about how to do that. So let's talk about first the myplate.gov system. Okay, so this was developed by the USDA about 10 years ago now. Easily definable quantities. It's set up as a plate, so you can see what you actually need in each one of your groups and how much your plate should actually consist of that. If you notice, fruits and veggies cover the majority of the plate. That's at least 3/4. And in fact, if you want to go vegetarian, you can use the protein and use vegetarian proteins instead of meat-based proteins for your protein consumption, and you're good there as well. Grains are another fourth thing you find on the plate. Dairy you find on the side. That's because, again, of calcium intake. Fats, oils groups are eliminated completely. You don't need to include that. If you think back to the old pyramid system, they were included there. We don't need that because we know we're going to get those from our regular foods anyway. It describes action plans. It says enjoy your food but eat less of it. Avoid oversized portions. One of the criticisms of the MyPlate system is it doesn't say how big that plate is, but the plate should really be about 8 inches to 10 inches max. You should be having whole grain foods. Switch to low-fat milks instead of whole milk, for example. Choose low-sodium options, and then only drink water besides that throughout the day. So we've covered a lot of this already with this idea from the last slide, but some other things to keep in mind, obviously, why you want to cover whole grain products, for example. They contribute to vitamin E and fiber intake. Plant oils are included daily. And also the other thing to keep in mind is if you're going to go for meat-based protein sources, make sure to eat fish at least twice a week. Now, an alternative to the myplate.gov system is the Mediterranean diet pyramid. So this still uses a pyramid, but if you notice, it's an excellent alternative to the USDA guidelines. On the right-hand side, it shows you what would be considered in a table for each one of those different food groups we see here. But what do we notice? On the bottom of the pyramid, way at the bottom, it's the idea of sociability and physical activity. That's included in the plan. You should be physically active, enjoy meals with others. And then when you go up through here, everything is non-specific quantities because it varies historically by region or season. But the biggest category is whole grains, focusing on whole grains first. Then we get into our fish group or our sea-based group. So we can see here, it should really be cold water fish. These are fish your grandmother probably knew, like salmon, cod, bass, those sort of ideas. Then in a smaller quantity, other things like poultry, cheeses, and yogurts. And then meats and sweets. We're talking about the red meats and sweets. Really very, very small amount of quantities taken in very rarely, in fact. And then we again see water on the side. Drinking water is important. And then wine may be consumed during mealtime with others only. Now, besides these two diets, we can talk about the vegetarian diets that are out there. Okay, so why do people become vegetarian? 1 in 40 adults in the U.S. is now a vegetarian. 1 in 25 in Canada are vegetarians. People have different rationales for following this. It can be because of an ethical reason. It can become because of a health reason. And the great thing, again, with the MyPlate system is it's amenable to following a vegetarian diet. There's different groups of vegetarians. We're going to go through these definitions pretty quickly for you. Vegans consume only plant products. So if you say veganism, that means they're not going to consume anything from an animal at all. This group, while excellent, is sometimes difficult to follow, and you have to be careful when on it. Because, for example, B12, vitamin B12, it's an essential vitamin. You need it in your diet for functioning of your body. It's only found in animal products. You do not find that in plants. So if somebody switches to veganism, you have a storage of B12 in your body that can last up to 4 years. You're just about a year you've got a surplus in your body. So what happens is you start a vegan diet, and then a year from now, the deficiency starts kicking in, and you start to see problems. Neurological issues can become prevalent with B12 deficiency, etc. So if you're following veganism, you need to get B12 from another source. That can be through going to a physician's office, taking supplements, drinking something like fortified soy milk. That'll get you where you need to go. There's other concerns with omega-3 intake and omega-6 intake, calcium intake, so you have to be considerate of those if you're going to follow veganism. Fruitarian is not recommended. That's someone that only consumes fruits, nuts, honey, vegetable oils. You're missing a lot of different food groups, and you're going to have nutritional deficiencies with that. Lacto-vegetarians, these people are going to consume milk products along with plants. You're getting where you need to go. Lacto-ovo-vegetarian, lacto for milk, ovo for egg. These people consume milks and eggs. It's the easiest of the vegetarian groups to meet your overall nutritional needs. Because when you do this, B12 is found in egg yolks, calcium is going to be found in the milk, you're good to go. So you're going to meet basically all of your requirements with vegetarianism and also with what you need for your nutritional health if you follow the lacto-ovo-vegetarian diet. Pescatarians, they consume only fish as a meat. This is to be done with caution. You really shouldn't be consuming fish every day. We'll talk about that in a different lecture, but it's because fish can contain methyl mercury, so you can get an accumulation of mercury within your body if you follow that type of a diet. When we think about vegetarianism, it's different for adults versus when we think about infants and children. They have different energy needs, they have smaller stomachs. So a lot of times with vegetarianism, you're going to have high fiber diets. That's great for us, it's going to fill us up, but at the same time, it's going to fill up a child as well, but it might not meet their energy needs they need because they're growing. So if following this along with your family members, again, make sure they're meeting their energy requirements for the day. Let's say you're not ready to get rid of meat altogether, but you still like the idea. You can just reduce your amount of meat intake. Just because you want to consume meat, you don't have to do it every day. For example, some people have already started following meatless Mondays. That means on Mondays, you go for alternative plant-based alternatives for your meat intake. Remember, it is important that you take in protein every single day. You need it. It's not something your body can accumulate or bioaccumulate and store. You need to take in those amino acids every day. So we have different products out there. For example, Impossible is a great alternative meat product. Tastes just like meat, especially in burger form, etc. So you can try those sort of things. The other thing you could do is just reduce your intake, for example, by doing the following. If you wanted to make tacos for Taco Tuesdays, instead of using a pound of chopped meat, what you could do instead is take half a pound of chopped meat along with a half a pound of beans and make those as an alternative to the taco. By doing this, you've reduced your overall consumption of red meat. You've also reduced your overall consumption of meats in general, which is better for the planet, better for you, etc., and you're getting those whole grains, which are great at the same time. Here's some more options for you. There's a lot of things out there nowadays as far as alternatives to meats. There's hot dogs they make nowadays, different types of processed things you might like bacon or hamburgers. The Dr. Prager's products are very good, and even things like soy milk, like Silk soy milk. It's an excellent alternative to milk. Tastes very good. Really nice in things like coffees because it actually keeps the coffee more of a nice thick consistency and doesn't have that taste of denaturation that sometimes happens with milks. If you do decide to follow a vegan diet instead of a vegetarian diet, lacto-ovo-vegetarian, etc., there are some things you got to keep in mind. Obviously, we talked about the nutrient concerns, but also the idea of complementary protein. So your book goes through this quite to a degree, but the idea is that if we think about different groupings of vegetables, for example, grains versus legumes, they have different amino acids in them, and they'll be missing some. So this is, for example, if you're trying to build cars, but you have a surplus of windshields, but not a deficiency in tires. You're not going to be able to make the cars because one of those things is missing. By doing the complementary groupings, you make sure that you're not missing anything in your diet. So, for example, on a day you consume legumes, you also need to consume grains. Or if you're going to consume nuts, you also need to consume vegetables. So again, you're going to make sure that you're not having any of those limiting amino acids for what you need for your diet. So how are you going to follow a vegan diet? First, become well educated on how to meet energy and nutrient needs. It's not something you just say you're going to do in one day. Look at some good resources for this. So, for example, talking to a registered dietitian, checking out exploreveg.org or even internationalvegan.org. These are good places to give you information as far as how to follow a vegan diet properly to make sure you're meeting your nutrition needs along with the reasons you want to become a vegan. So, the other idea, obviously, with your new diet is good luck and have fun. Remember, if it's something that's not satisfying and giving you good nutrition, you won't be able to follow in the long term and change that status quo. So this is something you should enjoy with this diet change. If you don't like it and you try it, you say, then maybe I got to try something else, and that's fine as well. So that's it. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you have a great time picking a new diet and trying something out. We'll talk to you soon.